This is pretty much like an overview of like how getting a higher or pursuing a higher credit limit is. And a great rule of thumb when it comes to requesting a credit limit increase is, in my opinion, in my experience, the best banks to request a credit limit increase every 90 days, every 90 days, at least 4 times a year, once a quarter, are going to be American Express, Discover, Capital One, Chase, and Apple. Those are like the best banks to have a consistently growing credit limit, right? Also, there's no hard increase, so it's a soft increase. It will not affect your credit profile. And just as an FYI for people who don't understand how it works and they have one of these cards, when to request for American Express, I request every at least 91 to 95 days for a credit limit increase. If you have a Discover has a annual cycle of doing manual reviews, basically like seeking to see if you deserve a credit limit increase at month 7, at month 11, and at month 14 of you obtaining that card, right? Capital One will check every 6 months. Chase will only check on request, and that's important to know because Chase is not stingy when it comes to credit limit increases. However, if you do not request it, then they don't give it to you. So you need to request it. For Chase, because they do a hard pull, I only usually do them twice a year. And then the Apple Card, you can ask for a credit limit increase with an Apple Card every month, and there's no limit to that. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because, like I said, increasing that credit limit is very important. Increasing the credit limit is super important. Which brings me to my next point, which was the utilization thresholds that I wanted to touch on when it comes to credit cards. Now, this one is, I feel like I discussed this topic ad nauseum because this is probably one of the biggest misconceptions in our community. And I did touch on it briefly earlier, but I wanted to give a visual to coincide with it. Why reporting a 30% credit utilization is the biggest myth and the biggest lie that we have been fed. Simply because, like I said, 30% reporting a 30% utilization leaves so many points on the table and prevents so many opportunities for us to increase our credit score. So if you are a person that does not have at least a 700 credit score, you cannot afford to report a 30% utilization under any circumstance. Instead, in order to increase your credit score in the most rapid way possible by using the current accounts that you have without having to apply for anything else, a great rule of thumb is to change the way that you are viewing credit utilization. What I mean by that, whenever we are logging into our credit monitoring apps, we are seeing a utilization percentage that encapsulates our overall utilization percentage, meaning like it's taking into account every single credit card that we have on our credit report, and it's adding those numbers together to give what's called an aggregate utilization. So it's whatever your collective total credit limits are across all of the current credit cards that you have, that's going to determine your utilization. If you are a person who needs and wants to increase your credit score and get every single point that you can, every extra point that you can within the next 30 to 60 days, so within the next 2 billing cycles, if you need to start approaching your credit utilization in an individual aspect. That is the only way that we are able to get as many of those 165 points allotted for credit utilization as possible. And unless you individualize each credit card, then you will not get all of those points. And I'll explain. So most people do not realize that, like I said, not only are we graded for aggregate utilization overall, but we are affected in the balances that we report on each individual card. We actually lose points. So here are some guidelines and thresholds that everyone needs to be aware of when it comes to credit cards. This is so important. There are certain thresholds when it comes to credit cards that I warn against, and like I said, everyone needs to be aware of. It's three important tiers. Any utilization that you report on any credit card above 28.9%, right? you automatically will trigger a 10-point score reduction per card, right? So off the bat, any single credit card that you have reporting on your credit report over 29%, know that like that's a 10-point score reduction every 3 months that you leave it like that. Now, this does apply to individual cards. So if you have multiple cards that's reporting over 28%, you will individually get dinged. So add those up. If you got 5 credit cards and they're 50%, 30%, whatever, then you are individually being dinged about 10 points each per infraction every 3 months, right? So off the bat, that's 60 points. That's like 90 points within 60 days that most people aren't even aware that they're being dinged. Now, where it gets dangerous is any credit card that you have reporting over a 48%, that is extreme. You are being dinged about 25 points per card that you are reporting over 48%. Um you are being labeled as risky. So anything that you apply for, you are never going to qualify for their premier offers for anything that's considered good or only for responsible borrowers. You will not qualify if you have any card over 48%. To take it a point further, most prestigious banks, the most prestigious banks will consider any card over 48.9% as maxed out. So not 100% like most people think. If you are reporting if your utilization that you are reporting is over 48.9%, American Express will deem that as a maxed out card. So you are being penalized the same as somebody who has maxed out their card at anything above 48.9%. That is extremely dangerous level. If you allow any single individual credit card to report over 48.9%, no, you cannot do that. You have to decrease that immediately, like the next billing cycle. Then the next threshold that's like is wraps. Above 98% is worse than getting a charge off. And this can be an active open credit card account. If you are reporting above 98%, you are in the worst possible signifier or risk level when it comes to borrowing power. It doesn't matter how good your credit score is. It doesn't matter how great your history is. Utilization refreshes monthly. So every month that you report that you allow that to report, it affects you every month, right? That's why it's so important when you are paying down your credit cards to do it strategically. The first thing that you need to do is pay down any card over 98% because the goal is to get all of your cards at least first under 98%, right? Once all of your cards are under 98%, you need to then seek to bring all of your cards under 48%. And then the ultimate goal is obviously to make sure at all times all of your cards are below 28.9%. And then doing just that, most people you can see like 90 plus point increase within, like I said, 2 billing cycles by just ensuring that you are not infracting on any of these thresholds when it comes to your individual credit cards. So that's super important.